If you've ever doubted yourself, criticized yourself, compared yourself to others, or just felt like you weren't enough, then today's episode is for you. You know how much I have absolutely loved every single guest I've had the privilege of speaking with, but today's guest is one of those people who truly feels like a soul sister. As I read her wonderful book, Enough, every word spoke directly to me. I felt like I was going on a journey with her, and our chat only strengthened that connection. We could have talked for an entire day, but I tried to make it as brief as possible. I know that this one's going to be so beneficial for you. Thanks for tuning in today to the Can I Get a Refill podcast. I'm your host, Steph Bruno-Newton. Be sure to jump on my website, canigetarefillpodcast.com.au, linked in the show notes to download your free 33-page ebook on 7 ways to protect your energy and fill up your cup. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So I've designed a guide to help protect your energy and take care of yourself as you up-level your life. Download it today and make yourself a priority in 2026. Okay, let's jump in. Hello and welcome back to the Can I Get a Refill podcast. We're in for a really lovely episode today with an international guest. We're talking I Am Enough, finding peace, setting boundaries, which you know I love, and reclaiming joy with author, speaker, and coach Barbara Burgess. Barbara, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a total honor to be here.
I'm so grateful to have you here. We were just having a chat off air. For everyone watching on YouTube, this is your wonderful book, Enough, that I recently read. I love the cover too. I love the simplicity of it. I connected with this book so much and your voice felt so familiar to me. And I was just saying how I felt like I was sitting at the kitchen bench with you reading it. And you just mentioned that you've read my blog and you felt a similarity there as well.
Yeah, for Stephanie's listeners, first of all, if you haven't read her blog, go read her blog. Second of all, in reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, is this a voice that like popped out of me? I felt like it could have been my blog had I just been, allowed the free form of my life and the particularly the vulnerability, the authenticity of it. Like when you feel that, there's something so special about that, I think.
So special about that. And I always harp on about, I don't want to make this about an age specific, but it's definitely for me something that just became more and more comfortable with each year and each decade. And I think you were the same by reading your book. You just never felt almost permission in your 20s to be your most authentic self. And maybe it is because of youth, but maybe it's because society was a little bit different back then and now it's...
And probably both and I will say to like younger girls and women listening, this is why, part of it, we're so... shamed for aging, like, no, please age, like embrace it, allow it, because you care less what people think and therefore you become more authentic in those moments. And again, I do think you're right. Society has shifted a bit too, but it's also part of being wise and realize, there's a lot of wacky people doing wacky stuff. I might as well claim my space.
Yeah. Look, there's so many beautiful moments in this book and we're going to get into them. And my questions are quite lengthy. So as I said, if I have to edit things out, I will. But I just want to, before we get into it, I just want to touch on even something so small as you had a PT and the PT reached out to you about, because I do these online workouts. My workouts changed since I became a mum. With Sydney Cummings. She's from the US and she always says, please never think that you're trying to lose anything, lose weight or, punish yourself. You're adding fitness, you're adding strength, you're adding to your life. So it's about, the fitness and the health. And your PT was about, sent you a text, I believe it was about let's shed some pounds or something. You were like, whoa, hang on. And you did a boundary, a pushback with, I appreciate where you're coming from, but that's going to make me not want to work out if that's the goal. Your goal was about the fitness. And I like that the PT was also very respectful and understood that boundary, but that really stood out to me. So I was, an adolescent in the 90s. Now, if you think about who was on your TV screen in the 90s, it was Ally McBeal, Grace on Will and Grace, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I'm not criticizing any of these women. They're wonderful women, but they're all very slim and very white. And what I'm criticizing is the representation. All you saw was slim white women. So if you weren't one, you felt wrong. You weren't represented. And something as simple. And I remember I went to a performing arts high school as a dancer. So everyone had the long, stick-thin legs. And I've got my friend's mum once described me as a Roman sculpture because I've got very strong,
which would have been the thing
legs.
That was celebrated in that day and age. You actually were allowed to have curves. When did we roll
that out? And now I celebrate it. Again, because strength is great now, I realize, and I celebrate my strong legs and the thickness of them. And, they've never seen a thigh gap in their whole life. And I'm proud of that. But I was traumatized by having to get into a swimming costume in front of these other girls in high school, but that's because I wasn't represented. And something as simple as Alicia Keys coming along, who was, still a slim person, but had thicker thighs and a more
Yes.
relatable figure, made me feel seen. And it made me sort of just more comfortable in my own skin. So, yeah, representation is definitely very important. But I really enjoyed that part of your book, the pushback of, make it about the fitness and not about the aesthetic.
And to your point, like I did a lot of interviewing before I selected him, as my personal trainer, and he's great. Like he is a lovely human. And this is where I think it gets so unconscious for all of us, right? Because there's just even in his unconscious mind, because he's more of a fitness person, but it slips, right? Because every other client probably is looking to shed the pounds for the next event or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's almost automatic in our culture. And this, going back to what you were saying about representation, I remember taking my daughter to a movie, and I think she was like somewhere between 5 and 7. And it was like, we waited a while before they went to a movie. So some cartoon kind of sweet, innocuous thing. And, but in it, we'll never forget, we walked out of that movie and she said there were 5 kind of superhero team characters. And she said, Mom, there were 4 boys and 1 girl. And it was one of those things where like that landed representation to me in a split second in a way I hadn't felt or understood before. So not only did she, what I'll tell you, this female character was certainly not curvy, which I am, my daughter is, right? But the fact was, it was like, if you looked at that representation, like 25% of the population is female. No, not accurate at all, And it really hit home with me how important that is, how important we talk about it, name it, claim it for ourselves, draw those boundaries, because we are constantly modeling for other folks as well. Like I guarantee you, just talking about that example, it makes me feel placed and safer. But even anybody who's listening to realize, oh yeah, that's good and normal. And this other thing is not, it's a skewed reality.
Absolutely. But it really shakes you into reality when you see a person so young, what they notice. You're like, oh, wow, they're picking up everything we're putting down.
Everything.
So yeah, right.
And
so
to realize,
so
when she could articulate that, it's not that she wasn't even noticing it years before, right? And then when you start to watch all these videos and movies and things like that, it's really sobering to realize the silly, but like I love even old holiday movies, but I watch them now and it's always the slight damsel in distress. Oh, you help me. Oh, I can't, like that's what we're modeling.
Hey, while we're on the topic, I know we're going off topic, but one of my favorites was Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, of course.
Mara Wilson.
Yes.
I rewatched it the other day. Do you remember what's his name? Is it Dylan McDermott from
McDermott, I think, yeah.
On The Practice, and I was like, I had this dream of being proposed to at Christmas. I'm a real Christmas person. And when I rewatched it back, oh my God, she's having a like deep and meaningful conversation with him about, why she has boundaries because she was hurt by the alcoholic ex. And she finishes a whole spiel and he replies, I just got some mistletoe. Do you want to go back to my house and use it?
And you're like, hello, lack of social emotional intelligence. Did you not hear a word I said? Like, again, you look at it through that lens.
She rejects his proposal. Now, 8-year-old Steph thought, what a bitch. 42-year-old Steph was like, oh, he's a walking red flag. Listen to her at all. Yeah. It's so funny. Anyway, we could go on and on. I could talk to you for 10 hours, so we'll jump in.
Yeah.
Barbara, could you please tell us a little bit about the work you do and what led you to write your book, Enough? And if you can touch on, there was such a beautiful story at the start of your book about chalk drawings.
Oh, yes. So, what I do for pay, it's always such a loaded question because what do I do? I'm a mom, I'm a worker, I'm a carer, I'm a sister, I'm in all those things. But for pay, I do coaching and training and facilitating and, executive stuff, all of that, primarily in corporate settings, but some personal as well. But the book, the funny thing you say about that first story, that's actually was the story that kind of kicked off this experience that then became the book, which started writing itself. For your listeners, had been literally cleaning out, as we periodically do, random shelves and things. And I had run across the kids' sidewalk chalk, hadn't touched it in a while. They were older than that moment or whatever it was. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? I pull it out of my, shelf. And I thought, I'm just going to put it outside. Kids could maybe use it, on the corner, et cetera. And I grabbed an old glass jar that we had sitting in our garage and, loaded it with the chalk, set it out there. And then I took one of them and I wrote, please write, chalk, or draw. And at the same time, I thought, oh, I gotta get it, prime it a little bit. So I drew just these circles, these brightly colored circles, and didn't think much of it in the moment. Literally, I was just sort of releasing something we didn't need. And that moment became this, I say it's like an avalanche that began in that moment with the chalk, because what happened was I've been sitting on outside, but not visible from where the sidewalk was. And I heard it was a little boy and his parent, and you could just hear, those, it's almost like a soundtrack you can hear where the little boy saw the chalk and wanted a chalk, and the parent was obviously busy. You have that moment. But they sort of reluctantly resigned themselves to letting their child chalk, which, you appreciate as a working mom, like, bless you for taking that moment. And you could hear him, he was like talking to himself. It was just the sweetest thing, like, oh, a little blue here, a little more of this there. He's just having this delicious, conversation with himself. And then eventually, and I didn't want to break that space. It was so, to me, sacred. It was so beautiful. And so I had stayed, sort of hidden from view, working on my laptop. And then when they had gone, when I couldn't hear sounds anymore, I kind of snuck my way down the steps just to see. And as a parent, I'm imagining it's probably a scribble. It's probably like something that's supposed to resemble a dog, but looks like a hat. Like, this is what you do as parents. Like, yes, that's a wonderful thing that it is. And they'll fill in the blank. Dog, mom, dog. But so I go to glance down there, and I literally was stopped in my tracks. And even now, like, I get teary thinking about it, because what this little boy had done, and he had taken those colored circles and he had turned them into planets, and he had turned them into this universe. He had put these rings around them, like rings around Saturn, and put stars in the sky. And I was just struck. And I literally started tearing up. And what I said was I had this physical sensation of something really, really deep inside me that probably was always there, but had been dormant. And it literally is like it reached out and squeezed me. And I just let myself stand there and cry by the beauty of it. And I'm somebody who loves, pictures from space. And I remember the first time we saw Hubble things, and I think it's gorgeous, divine artwork, right? And so in that moment that was my tangible first experience of enough in this sense. It was this peace, this, connection. And it's not like I've never had that sensation, but it began this whole series of events of remembering what really matters, of honoring those moments, of hearing a voice that's different. It was like in that moment, all the cha-cha that is usually where I'm mentally running ahead, planning everything, figuring out the next right thing, worried about stuff, was just like gone. And this other, presence was there. And it became this whole journey where, I felt like enough started, in the book, it's a she started poking her head into my life quite often. And it was this whole series of events. And then it became a direct contrast from not enough. I could sort of discover this contrary voice in my head that would talk to me, that I was used to, that was almost like a constant soundtrack. But the book really began writing itself. All I did was I was at a coffee shop and I thought, I'm just going to grab that. What a beautiful moment. I'm going to grab it and write it down. But it just kept coming and coming. And finally, it was one of those moments where like, okay, I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to just put this in a book and publish it. I guess I'll do that, right? But what I've learned since then is the moment that I actually published, I thought was sort of an end of a journey. It was the beginning, because a lot of the lessons that are in there, although I had an experience of them, it was a first experience, and they have continued to teach me ever since. And so I've thought, like, if no one ever read it, it was there for me, to really serve. So it's been quite a journey since then.
But I love that the voice was probably always with you. Enough was probably always with you. But it was, like you said, it's so much noise and mind shatter that little, because children are so pure. My theory is because they're fresh from the other side, so they need to be tainted.
Agreed.
So
totally agree.
They have this way of bringing you into the moment. And when you were talking about him sort of, this one, a little bit more blue, it reminds me of this. I keep seeing on Instagram this 4-year-old boy skiing, and he's like, I might follow it's okay. We all fall over and we get back up. And it's so pure, the little
That's
like,
exactly what it was
self-talk.
like, whatever
Yeah.
that is. Yeah.
But I got choked up and teary reading that too, because it wasn't just that something beautiful was created. It's that he added it to your drawing. So it felt like the real connection of someone started something beautiful. I'm going to add to it. I just, it's.
Which is also
it's
so pure, right?
Yeah.
And to what you said about that it was always there. This is, I'm going to reference your blog. When you were talking about the aspect of yourself that awakened when you became a mother, like that's what it reminds me of. It's like, gosh, that little girl inside who could play was probably always there, but whether it was life's invitation or a moment or something woke up, right?
Absolutely.
And to your point about becoming bigger than that, like we do it every year. Like the chalk is out every warm weather. It's from the spring through the summer for us here. And it has been for years now since that first moment. And to the point where people will stop me. Like we literally just at the end of the summer, someone put a whole thing of chalk on our thing. Thanks that you do this. So we have formed all these relationships in the most beautiful way. People will stop me if I'm out front,
Do they call you chalk lady?
Not exactly, but the equivalent. Oh, you're that? I always wondered but it will be, I've had somebody say, I'm your night artist. There's someone who does these amazing illustrations. Someone else did one this summer that was like a mandala. It was gorgeous. And so it's just everything. Or some people will write things like, you're beautiful, have an amazing day.
I love
like all these things.
On nice YouTube things, I like to read people's comments of whoever's reading this, I hope you have an amazing day. Like I love stuff like that. Like I love to pass on. Or if you ever see something nice written on the back of a public toilet door, I love that too.
Yes,
but
same thing.
I just want to share a direct quote from your book regarding this chalk drawing. I didn't get to know people by their titles, categories, or affiliations. I got to know them through the shared pictures in our hearts, the ones that made their way from their insides to my sidewalk. And it's just so fitting. That's exactly what it was. It doesn't matter who you are, what your job is, what your debts are, if you've cheated on someone, if you've been cheated on. It's just you're connecting on a pure soul level. And it's such a simple story, but it really was the catalyst for the whole book, wasn't it?
Well, and to that point, it really was like, I don't know who these people are. Like you can't do the quick title, blah, 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 blah. Like it's very rare that you happen to be out there at the same time somebody would chalk. But to see, there's something about, I think that maybe is more childlike and innocent about what we would draw if we picked up a piece of chalk, or what we might care about, what may be our heart, or to your point, what something might inspire in us. Like if somebody saw something on there and then that moved them to put something else on. But I believe in our world, we're so divisive in a way that's unnecessary. And I think there's so much more we have in common and so much more beauty. And I think those pictures on our hearts are the commonality. It's just that we get distracted by all this other stuff.
I completely agree with that. And, the politics in your country in particular, I certainly know which way I lean, and I think it's the kinder, more compassionate way. But I absolutely do not agree with unfollowing, not being friends with someone because they share a political view. I have people with Republican views. I would be a Democrat if I was in your country, and I'm able to have them in my life. We just don't discuss politics. There's certainly you've got to have, it's an emotional maturity to have a level of understanding that other people might have been brought up in a different home, in different setting, or brought up in the same home but different schools and just had different experiences and have completely different views on the world. So I just think we have to get away from that divisive view. It's really, we're losing our strength as an animal,
as
like
humanity.
As
I agree. And I feel like I have voted in all different directions in my life, but yes, I will always lean to inclusive, kinder, gentler, just because it's my value set.
No, in my country, I vote all different ways now too, because I vote on the person and their values rather than I'm stuck with. It's not like my football team where I'm stuck with that team and they're disappointing losses for life. I can choose each time. So
but I think there used to be a moment, and again, not that it was the good old days, I don't believe that either, but there were more times to have meaningful, constructive dialogue where it wasn't demonizing or othering people, and I'm
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely online, like having, the internet's brought wonderful things, but it's definitely brought extra divisive nature to it. Can you talk us through your take on the ladder of comparison? I like this one. There's a beautiful Henry Dyke quote that you include in your chapter on comparison. Oh, I love this so much. Use what talents you possess. The woods would be very silent if no birds sang there except those that sang best. Oh, love that.
And again, this is what Stephanie's referencing is something I saw on a postcard when I was about 13, which is such an awkward age where you don't feel like, no, even if you're amazingly gorgeous, you're not right. There's just parts of you that you're criticizing and all those kinds of things. But, for me, I remember being on vacation and reading that quote, and I'm somebody who would love to sing. I love to sing, but it's not like I have, a voice that would, perform on TV. And so what I started to discover with this journey of enough is one of the biggest problems I had was comparison. So, it's like I would, feel good for a moment. I'd have this moment being with myself, have it, meditate, I reflected, I did it, I had a sweet moment with the child. And then all of a sudden I'd go out into the world and see something that, oh gosh, they're the same age as me making a bazillion more dollars, or they're, twice as thin, or they're this or that. And I would go down this, kind of comparison trap. And that's when Not Enough's voice was so strong. Like, look at what they did. Look at, if only you could, all that thing was almost like a barrage. And what I started to realize, and it came out of an interaction with another relative, if we think about comparing ourselves to others, to me, in that comparison, there's only, a ladder that goes from the earth all the way up as far as we can see. And every person's on one rung of that ladder. So I'm either going to be a little bit thinner or a little bit fatter than the person around me, or whatever it is. Let's say it's body. And so if we're all hanging on to one of those, like somebody's ranking all of us, right? The whole population of the planet, at the very top, there's only one, right? And if we're looking at money, for example, there can only at any one point in time be one wealthiest person. And the market could change, the world could change, and all of a sudden, like, they're off that in a second anyway. So where's the goal, right? It doesn't matter. And the reason this became so profound for me is my relative of mine who came into a lot of money and was super frank with me and said, hey, by the way, like, it's just, we're honest, and they said, in the circles I'm in, I'm poor. And the amount of money they have would be the equivalent of a huge lottery jackpot in the US, like huge. And so you would think, what else is there? You've arrived, right? But no, there is always somebody above you, above that moment, et cetera.
In any category.
In any category.
Never be the best of the best. It's always, and just to jump in, it's also subjective. When it comes to singing, like, I went on The Voice years ago, but like, it's always the biggest voice turns chairs. But one of my favorite artists of all time is Stevie Nicks. I doubt if Stevie Nicks may turn 4 chairs, because it's like, she's one of the greatest, but like Joni Mitchell, these are storytellers. They've got something. Well, my very all-time favorite singer is Tori Amos, but not everyone knows her. And again, her voice to me is like, great. Her voice to me is like how a mango tastes. Like, you cannot get any better. But other people might think her voice is nails on a chalkboard. So
yes.
It's so subjective,
Yes.
Wealth is measurable. And that's why I always say my husband was in footy, and I was like, yeah, sport is good because you either get the ball over the line or you don't. When I was dancing, it was so subjective, where I'm an 8-year-old girl standing there with strangers critiquing me, and it was just a very odd feeling for me.
Yes.
So
well, and even to that point, because my daughter dances too, and I watched a special at one point in time. Her dance company does all kinds of dance, but I was watching a special on, like New York or American Ballet Theater, maybe it was, but they were talking about the prime thing they do with the 7-year-olds is measure their foot, and they figure out the angles and all that kind of stuff. And if that fits and the kids will listen, they can groom them, right? So you talk about that, like, is that beauty? And that's why I love Misty Copeland, and I bought her book too, but here she was, a ballet dancer, defying all of that, a woman of color, a woman who actually had a thigh, not even, you can't even say big thighs.
Martha Graham was like that too.
Martha Graham is another good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's subjective. And even if it were not, again, it's a ranking that doesn't serve, because how do you win it? Right. And that's where I say in the book, like, the only thing I've discovered that works is getting off the ladder. It's like noticing I'm doing that comparison, and like, I notice, like, oh, there you are gripping again onto the rung. Let go. Just let go, walk away, get it, because there's no good that can come out of it,
No,
and that is, and again, we're talking about comparison, we're talking about those kind, not the like, oh, I loved their presentation, I think I'll improve mine. Like, that's all great. That kind of comparison.
No, that's constructive feedback. We're looking at yourself and how you can improve each time. That's different. But comparing, yeah, it's time waster. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I love your take on that, and I completely agree with the latter. Why is it important to avoid the seduction of self-help and changing ourselves? And do you think we've gotten so caught up in improving ourselves that we've become quite compulsive? I'm a very compulsive character, all or nothing, such as checking our step count instead of taking in the view. Now, this is something that I've done, and I love my walks by myself, but I very often just constantly checking the step count.
Well, this is what started it for me, because I had, chosen a step goal for the year. And I was so like, yes, I'm an all or nothing. I'm either exercising every day with all the things or not, And so I was realizing I was doing this, but, my Apple readout had every 15 minutes it would update. And I found myself compulsively looking to see, are we 12 minutes in? How many more minutes till I can see how far I've gone? And I was like, girl, this is when the book was writing itself. And I'm like, you have a problem. Like, we are no longer even enjoying this physical activity of being in this beautiful body. We are compulsively checking to see if we achieve the goals. And that's where I talk about in the book a little bit, but I changed even the name of it. I don't go for a walk, I wander. And, if I give myself permission to wander, it's a different mindset, right? And the interesting thing is, like, I still get in the same quantity, but I'm not doing that compulsive checking, because that is the exact problem, right? It is no longer pleasurable. It doesn't bring joy. It doesn't do any of those kinds of things. And I think, I worked for a while in the personal development field, and in the US, it's a very big thing. I think it probably is for you guys as well. But what I realized is there was just as much problem, because that comparison's right there as well. Like, am I conscious enough? Am I health and wellness enough? Am I, whatever, authentic as I need to be in my transactions? Well, you're right back on that hamster wheel. It's just not the money, it's something else. And to me, what I talk about in the book is I reserve the right to change anything at any time. If I want to lose weight, I'm going to lose weight. If I want to make more money, if I want to improve this thing. But the idea that I have to is what I take exception to. And I think there's a lot, because it's a like $7 billion industry. Personal growth has become about what you should do, I'm like, no, I'm not signing up. It can be toxic
positivity, really,
yes.
can't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's still driving. It's still for a goal. It still has all that stuff behind it. It just happens to be a different one.
I love what you said so much about I reserve the right to change my mind. And I'm always saying to people, give yourself permission just because you gave yourself a goal. My goals this year, well, I don't really do yearly. I do short-term and long-term. No, I'm nowhere near. I completely veered off course and went in a completely different direction. And that's fine, because you know what I did? I just rewrote them. Like, it doesn't matter that I didn't fail. The whole trajectory of my life shifted this year, so I had to change things. But I hate to compare countries, but I have referenced this so much. For my father's side is from Sicily, and they are not like us with the compulsive and the checking. They walk so slow, by the way, but they're, like in Sardinia, where they live over 100, they walk as their transport. Like they always say, like, we will drive to the gym to run on a treadmill.
So true.
In Italy, they walk everywhere. Escalators are really just not a thing. In Europe, there's so much pleasure around exercise, and it's done slowly, and it's not about measuring. It's just, they just live in pleasure and joy. Whereas we have a reward system where we'll diet all week and work hard all week and then give ourselves a reward for 2 days on the weekend. And like, Italians think that's ridiculous. Like,
and it is ridiculous.
A cake, they eat a cake for breakfast.
Yes.
They want, so... Yeah, it's definitely something that Western culture does a lot. And even with the self-help and this improvement, it's really become like this toxic thing. So I'm always about checking in on how you feel and trying to lead by that. Like, is this still working for me? Does this feel good? And like I think I said to you off air, I used to wake up and be at the gym at 5:45 a.m. That is just a nightmare for me now. Like I have slow mornings. I read, I meditate. I have a really slow morning now because my son's asleep. I want to really enjoy this time. Then I'll work out at 9. And so I'm constantly reassessing how things work for me. But I definitely am guided by how I feel.
Well, and even to that point about goals, I have a group of women that we, support each other on things. But a good
Oh, I love
friend of mine, her quote unquote goal last year was about enjoying pleasure. Like that was
yes.
her goal, right? And
Mm,
like, what a different thing than any of us would have chosen a handful of years ago. But really, it was about how do you soak up that pleasure and that lifestyle in all the ways. And there are limitless ways you can do that, right? And then to be
yeah.
able to reflect on your year and think, how did I do it? Having
Yeah.
pleasure, like what a wonderful inquiry.
I just can't believe how much I've always just been in a rush and just, like pushing, pushing, pushing to try and get to somewhere. And I said to you again off air, I'm trying to lean more into the feminine and, I'm trying to achieve success through my feminine energy rather than the masculine doing. And my favorite part of the day is just before bed, I'll read to my son and then he sort of does his little thing and starts nodding off while I read my book. But I've started putting my phone, because if I keep the lamp on, he doesn't nod off. So I've started putting the light on my phone just on my chest to read my book. And then it does shadows on the ceiling and he's just noticed them. So I started doing that, the dog barking on the
Oh,
ceiling. Oh,
yes.
he
Yeah.
cannot stop laughing. I had to remember how to do it. I haven't done that since the 90s probably. And oh man, like something as simple as that.
Yeah.
I have to look up how you do more of them. I can only do the dog barking. Like he just laughs so much and I'm really.
Yeah, you can do the eagle, this way.
Ah,
with
yes. What's the
the
bunny
bird.
ears? I got to remember how to do that. I tried to do it. I did the little walking. But it's so much joy and it's so much presence. And
Yes.
equally when he first wakes up, I don't put the TV on. I put, like Christmas carols on yesterday. It's December when we're recording this, even though I'll air in the new year. And we just danced around the house. And I was like, this is such pure joy. And I just, I was just in the grind for so long. I never allowed myself to be in it. Almost like feeling guilty that you should be achieving something right now.
Oh yeah,
So,
I mean, and I still like this is when I coach a lot of executives, but that shame about it. Like I didn't know how to turn down. I didn't know how to enjoy a vacation. I had to learn. I had to literally teach myself how to take time off because
yeah.
what I would do is I would take off, like I started doing mommy getaways. So I would go once a quarter by myself just to remember who you are as not a mom, not a leader at work, not a whatever. But even that at the beginning, I had a hard time because I was like, oh, I didn't rest enough. I didn't achieve enough. I didn't read enough. I didn't da da da. So I came up with this different hack. And so I filled a piece of, because I needed to learn how to follow myself and be at peace. I would fill a notepad with every possible thing I could do, right? Could not have to, but could. So it could be binge watch a show I like on Netflix, listen to music, cook something, go for a walk, fill the whole thing up. And my job, quote unquote, what I would do is, I'd get there on a Friday night. I would wake up on Saturday morning and I'd look at the notepad and I'd say, what would bring me the most delight right this second? And then I'd pick that thing, or if I thought of something else. But what was wonderful is it trained me how to follow myself and be relaxed, because otherwise I was once again trying to achieve something in my relaxation time.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No, but it reminds me of what you were saying earlier when people are like, I gave myself a goal of reading 20 books this year. And I'm like, I am not counting what books I read. That is my pleasure time. If we get to the point now when we're speed reading to show everybody the stack of books we've read at the end of the year, you've lost something. Like
Yes.
you've really
We've lost a lot, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what are three ways we can stop listening to the voice of not enough and lean further into enough? It sounds like the voice of enough is very loud for yourself, but maybe for the listeners, we haven't.
Well, and it
found a way
used to be
tap into it
silent.
yet.
So, it's been a journey to that point. But I think there's a couple things to do. And one is, for me, as silly as it was, like naming it as an entity, like it might, mine's enough. Yours could be Carol. I mean, it doesn't matter, but putting a voice to that sense of delight, well-being, meaning, connection, all that kind of thing, almost like it's a character, really helped, because what that helped me do was notice the difference between the voice of enough and not enough as it was present. And, before that, it's just a constant roll in the background. But I feel like enough's voice is like a whisper, where a not enough is a scream. And so to be able to kind of balance that out and hear them distinctly so that I know, what am I responding to? Am I going for a walk because not enough is sitting here telling me what a lazy butt I am? Or is it because I have a desire to be in my body and move and have fitness and all those things? So I think identifying, giving it a name, whatever that looks like, is like my tip one. The other piece goes back to the ladder of comparison, which is noticing when I get on it and letting go. I just think if we're doing that comparison thing, it is very difficult to allow ourselves to be in the space of enough, and so catching, and again, other people's barriers might look a little different, but catching it, releasing it, catching it, releasing it. Because to me, it's a constant thing that's always in motion. It's not like you're done with it. Oh, I never compared again. No, I catch myself more quickly and step off more quickly. And then I think the third thing would be really almost enhancing or turning the light up on these small micro moments, like what you just described with your, like I can see it as if I'm in the room with the shadows on the ceiling, and they're precious, right? And to really give ourselves permission to soak and savor those, in a deep way. Because what happened was, as I began to make the distinction between these voices and the idea of enough became more prevalent, I have story after story after story. Like I finished it, finished the piece for the book and shipped it off. But there are so many little micro moments in my life that are just filled with this delight that I think I would have not noticed before. And so to really allow whatever piece that is to be savored and amplified and spoken about or grabbed, I think makes a big difference. It helps underline it at a certain degree.
Absolutely. And there's something I always harp on about is the relationship with self. And I think the more you meditate, spend time by yourself, you're strengthening that relationship with yourself to be able to hear those voices. So if you don't know yourself very well and you're filling all this space and the silence with, other people, sex with people you don't know, alcohol, loud music, you're not going to hear that voice. So for me, I've got, everyone should jump on my website. I've got a free ebook on 7 steps to fill up your cup and have barriers, but it's really, really all about strengthening the relationship with the self. And that's been the only way that I've been able to, leave an abusive relationship, or like constantly listen to yourself. Are we okay here? Are we comfortable? Is this what we want? And something as simple as exercise. Am I doing this because it feels good to me right now, or because I'm shaming myself into doing it? And I just think when you honor her, you can never go wrong. But if you're doing something from someone else's measure, you're never going to feel happy with yourself.
Well, and the psychology term of that is internal locus of control versus external locus of control, right? Am I looking in here to see where the pleasure, fuel, delight is, or am I scanning out there, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, and I love that you have a resource for that for folks, but that being with yourself, like I think myself being with me is the enough voice. I think it just was so low and I was so disconnected and out of tune. It just, when you said when we first started at the beginning, like it was there all along. I fully believe that. I can sense her, like she's always been here. I just couldn't hear it, right? And I think any of those pieces, to your point, with a resource that helps you get in touch with yourself, absolutely, because that's where enough lives.
Dorothy with her ruby heels, clicking 3 times. It was there all along, wasn't
it?
I just remembered one point I wanted to say about resting from the last point. Mm-hmm. Again, that Sydney Cummings, who I do workouts with, she does this spicy workout. She goes, it's not going to be spicy if you're not resting in those rest points. And so with exercise, the rest is where the muscle grows. Like after the workout is when it's growing. So when it's your own businesses. So when I used to work for other people, I shut that laptop at 5 and I was done. And I'm not doing that this year. And I'm the one who preaches that. But I'm finding I'll work all through the weekend and I'll, because it's mine and I love it. But I'm not switching off. So I'm in go mode, in fight or flight all the time. So I'm really making a point, at least one full day on the weekend, I don't look at anything. Phone's on flight mode, whatever. Because if I don't rest, I'm not as productive the next. You're literally more productive the next day with rest. So rest truly is productive. It's not just a bumper sticker saying. It's actually really, it's not the sleep, it's the rest. It's your mind being able to refresh.
1,000%. And I will say, like, even for me with building the business, in that enough, not enough space, if I started getting too compulsive, too checking a spreadsheet, too measuring, if I found myself in that kind of state, the only thing, like I literally would experience almost like my pipeline drying up. It would be all of a sudden like my compulsiveness around that, something happened with energy in the universe and things like that, that all of a sudden it was like that constriction. And so somebody had given me this advice, but I did it. Like if I find myself in that compulsive state, I stop, save, step away and do something joyous and fun and whatever. And I have found dollars wise, that has made a huge difference. Like I do the best and I've had the most abundance and flow when I'm letting myself play, be at joy, be in those pleasure spaces, what you described as more of those feminine
The
spaces.
feminine, yes.
It's where I've done more of my magic, right? And I get advice from a lot of people who tell me, this is the mechanical way to do it. But, I kind of want to go, let's look at your revenue and my revenue, and then let's talk about what I should do,
love to
because
hear a
it's
woman
not,
say
and
that.
I would never do that because that's comparing and that's right. But the point is like, no. In that magic is that rest, the joy, the delight. And the research is all over the place about it. Like, beyond the muscle piece, I remember as a COO, there was a moment in time, like my company, we had been pulling all-nighters, doing all this stuff. And I finally went, this is not good. I've got to stop this, right?
This isn't living.
And I did. And there was a short-term price to pay because in the staffing meetings, I didn't get my head patted as much. But oh my gosh, what happened after that? I had creativity available. I had my brain available. My body was rested. And I, in less hours, was doing way more productivity and becoming the problem solver people would go to because I had my rest and sense about me. Like I saw it so tangibly.
Yes, but I'm also very big on energy. And, if wealth and success are on this energy and you're so burnt out, it's not going to match up. So you definitely can allow more success and more wealth in with that rested energy. That's definitely something I'm tapping into this year. I want to talk about one of my favorite topics that I've really honed in on in my later years, my older years, more mature years, we'll say, setting boundaries, but without apology or explanation. I have a theory that women over-explain when they can't go to something, and my husband's just like, thanks, can't go. You highlighted this beautifully in your book when you referenced saying yes to invitations or even freebies that we know we don't want for fear of offending someone. And I quote, "This cycle repeats itself over and over again until my home, my calendar, my emotions, and my life no longer offer me a space to rest my weary head." I say this not lightly. That is my favorite quote from the book. I really just pictured, I'm always about decluttering my home. I'm all about that. My calendar, if I have something on the Saturday, I'm not doing anything on the Sunday. And I'm always saying to people, that's your responsibility. Other people don't know your schedule. So talk me through setting boundaries without apology or explanation.
Yeah. And I think, again, for some of us, like I was just used to saying yes to everything and everybody and all that kind of thing. And so to me, it came in baby steps. Like first I had to practice saying no with the excuse, right? That was like my beginning practice. But over time, again, as I sense more of my power and reclaim it, I do not owe an explanation to anybody. There is no reason for that, right? And so the question is, why am I doing it? Well, that's old guilt, old baggage, old whatever. And it's funny how many people you can upset when you stop, at the beginning. But what's interesting is
I found the opposite, Barbara. I find the more people over-explain, the more people don't respect them. And I have found the less I explain, the more people are respecting my boundaries.
Well, 100% as far as my day-to-day now, but friends were used to me doing the opposite.
Yeah, it's
so at the
sharp
beginning,
change.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is like when they get all they're getting used to is you being different. It's not that it's actually a problem. They're just not familiar with it, right?
Well, unfamiliar is uncomfortable for people.
Yes.
So I get that.
And so my friends now, they're so funny. They're like, is this like, two of us were invited to another event and one of my friends asked me, are you going? And I said, I'm not. And she asked me, she goes, is this a no or a no? And it was not because she had any judgments. She was curious because she's in the inquiry herself. Yes. And I said, I actually do have a hard conflict, but even if I didn't, it would still be a no because it's not a fit for me. And it was almost like we were co-journeying together on these saying no things. But I think the big no's are easier. I think the clutter in the home is easier, but I think protecting our well-being, our energy, our calendar, all those things are trickier. And the little no's are harder because it's like people will sometimes say like, oh, do you have a conflict? Like, nope. I don't.
It's not really your business either. Like people are like, well, why, what are you doing? I'm like, it's my business.
Yeah.
I find that the female peers my age, they're all doing it now. So it's the easiest person to say no to because they're just like, say no more. I got it. Like we're all respecting each other's boundaries because every female my age has kids, so they've got to look after their family. They got high pressure jobs. Then they've got, their family of origin. Maybe their parents are getting older. So they're in the middle, the eye of the storm, where you're the go-to person for everything. And every night, if you go to text your friend, they've all got that purple do not disturb thing on their phone, where they've all put it on flight mode, because you have to create those boundaries to take back those little pockets of self.
Even people now, when they apologize to me of, I can't make it, I'm so sorry I had to cancel. Like, I literally paused for an education lesson. I said, listen, for you and me, you never need to, it's fine that you had, but like, if you called me and said, I just don't feel like going, I'm okay with that. Right now, again, it's different if all of a sudden we were co-leading something. I don't mean that, but in these little tiny invitation ways, I'm like, I applaud and honor you for noticing it's not a fit, even if it's the last minute. Like, you could have had a kid crisis at the end of the day and you just don't have it in you. That's okay. And I'm not going to hold it against you, because what I do instead is I respect and honor that you're that kind of a powerful woman. So I think you're right. I think we're getting to a place where those of us who are choosing are attracting and responding to each other in a different way as well.
It's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. And I love saying that to people too. Like, you don't ever owe me an explanation, and they feel so comfortable. I want them to feel comfortable. And what I've noticed is I don't lie about anything anymore. Whereas years ago, I'd be like, oh, I can't. Oh, I don't have the car. And now I'm just like, I had something I look forward to every year. I have a big picnic Christmas party with all my friends from school. Like, we've known each other for 30 years. And it was a 39-degree day. Oh, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's very, very, like, almost to the point that you can't handle it. I've got a 16-month-old son. He loses it in the heat. I had a really, a lot of personal disappointment where something really private, didn't go my way that week. And I was just down. I had hormonal issues, just really feeling down. And I said, guys, can't show up for you this way. And then I had friends reaching out to me the next day, and I said to my husband, you just know when you have the right friends, when they're all, because they were busy that day. And then I had a friend come back the next day going, hey, I realized I didn't ask, are you okay? Because I've got my own shit going on. But she's like, is everything okay? Is this, you just needed a day, or do you want to talk about it? And yeah, there's beauty in that. There's beauty in that compassion. And I just can't have people in my life anymore that make me feel nervous or walking on eggshells. And I removed those
which
people
by the way,
long ago.
Going back to that boundaries, like, that's exactly what happened for me over time. Is like, there are certain people that are just not in my life. If I'm at an event and there's a certain kind of group going, I'm just not going to go, because it doesn't work for me to be around that kind of energy.
Because they drain your battery.
It works for me to be around the supportive kind that respects that. And if you don't respect that, I can't have you in my space.
No, it's really quite simple. And that's why there's beauty in choosing your tribe. And it's definitely something that I've got a slightly smaller, but a very beautiful, strong tribe at the moment. Okay, I'm a big believer that money is merely a tool, an energy force like anything else. It all comes down to how we use it and our feelings of worthiness in receiving it. You articulated this beautifully in your book when you said, money is a tool, just like that hammer. With a hammer, I can build someone a chair or hit myself on the head. How has your relationship with money evolved from not enough to enough?
Yeah, I think it's been a huge part of the journey, interwoven at the same time, in the sense that it is that same kind of, equation, but it really is how I feel about it. I feel like it is a wonderful tool. It is a fantastic tool. But when I'm using it to compare or belittle or demean myself, then I am hitting myself over the head. But the reality is, I love money. We love each other. I love to do good things. And I've said this often, I think when I was younger, and I think we all grew up with beliefs about money that become a problem, but didn't have a lot, but we were aware of our social standing when I was growing up. And so it was always damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, we would make fun of the rich people, but then also never make sure that we appear too poor. Like, it was this crazy social kind of equation. Well, that creates a very strange relationship with money, because it's bad to have it. It's bad to not have it. If you have it, you're one of those bad rich people. If you don't have it, you're one of those people that doesn't have enough to take care of themselves. It was this crazy thing. But once I really began with this version of enough and this journey and all that kind of stuff, it is like a welcome friend in my life, just like anything else I might use or have or anything. And so it is never about the money that's a problem. Now, do some people with a lot of money make poor moral choices that don't align with my values? They sure do. Do I endorse that? I sure do not, right? But when it comes to me and the planet, I welcome in boundless amounts of money because I like to do good things with it. Even I remember when I first started my business and I hired a friend to sit in the room for one of my trainings. And I remember even she, as a female entrepreneur, was like, well, we'll meet, let's figure out this research, da, da, da. And I said, no, you don't understand. Like, I've worked with her before in an ad hoc way. And I said, I just want to pay you this amount of money to be in the back of my room for this training I'm facilitating, because I know you and you are good and you are going to scan for anything. At a break, you're going to tell me if there's anything, et cetera. Like, this is a priceless thing. I don't think you quite get it. I loved paying that bill. I loved it. It was not like, it wasn't like, oh, I can't believe I got to pay this. To transfer that beautiful asset called money from my lovely account to my friends for doing this really feminine, qualitative thing for me felt fantastic, right? Same thing with even the bookkeeper I use. Every time I pay her bill, I'm delighted because she's such a good human. I know about her kids, her family, her life. I love paying it. So it's not even just receiving it, but it's that whole relationship. Like, if we look at it as sacred energy exchange, then it's wonderfully gorgeous and rich and delicious, right? Again, it doesn't justify the excuses that some do with a power and control thing, but that's different than money itself. Money itself is not a problem.
No, it's an amplifier. And I always say it's like alcohol. There's a Reese Witherspoon movie where she goes, I don't drink to feel better. I drink to feel even better. So if you're in a bad headspace and you drink, you're going to spiral. If you're having a great day and you're having some champagne with your friends, it's usually ending up in a good night. And I feel like, alcohol and money really amplify the person you already are. And if it's in the hands of someone evil, but if it's in the hands of a good person, think of all the good you can do with it. So I think that years ago, a lot of people grew up with a lot of, maybe shame around it, thinking, oh, I don't want to be greedy or, like be seen like that. But it's not. What's greedy about?
Well, and by the way, when I'm coaching business people and business professionals, they'll be like, but it's fine, but I want to make sure they get, and I'm like, no. You advocate for that raise, that money, that everything. And again, not to every human, but to most of the people I coach. I said, you know why? I know you'll do good things with it. Why should that go somewhere else? Why would it not land in your lap? So don't say that. Like, advocate, grab it, take what you can, not to walk all over people, but to have more, to do more, Yeah.
It's so sad when we do that, when you catch yourself doing that. I like what you said about paying the bill with joy. Louise Hay used to talk about kissing her electricity bill, like how blessed to have this
every
light on in
physical
my
check
home.
I have that comes in, I put little hearts on it, sometimes rainbows, and I hold it to my heart before I file it. Because a lot of times, even sometimes it's an electronic thing, but I do that religiously because I am grateful, and it is a way to honor that gratitude in that moment.
It's value added to your life. You are always willing to spend money on something that adds value to your life. So I love that. I love that so much. But that gratitude, I'm really starting to do that even with every download of an episode. I'm like, I'm so grateful that someone I don't know put my voice in their ears today. And I just think, it's definitely got energy behind it, money. And I think the more I attach gratitude to it, like, I always say, like, if you relate it to a person, if you were saying, oh, you're not enough, you're never here enough, that, like, they're eventually just not going to want to show up at all because you're shaming them all the time. But if you're like, I so enjoy the time we do have together, it'll show up more. So I feel like if you're looking at your bank account all the time, it's not enough, it's never going to be enough, is it?
Yeah. Well, and you also don't want to be like, I don't deserve you. Like, no. And you're like, no, I do. And this is great, and let's play.
I think there's a lot more of that for women personally, like how we can only get credit cards 50 years ago, like in the 70s. That's, like my mom was born decades before that. Like that seems insane to me. So I think
my childhood was in the 70s. So I mean, when I really started looking at the timeline of women's rights, women's empowerments, it is so freaking sobering. It's not even funny.
But what about even the lack of like maternity leave payments? Like how to do it, or like what do you get where you are? Do you get anything?
Well, it depends on the company, what you get. But a lot of places it's horrible and meager. And I could tell you stories that would make your ears curl.
But your government doesn't pay? Ours pays like 5.5 months. We get paid 5.5 months.
The government pays nothing.
Yeah, I don't understand how a woman who's working, like what is a single mom working a retail job?
A regular,
what does she do when
generous
she has a baby?
Corporation is paying 12 weeks.
And then you just, it's just impossible. It's
now,
not
again,
designed for women.
Smart companies are, doing it and for to compete and et cetera, but it goes in waves that way. I mean, I worked for a person once who we had 8 weeks that we paid. We were a nonprofit. And after this, we didn't have a formal policy. We put it in place. And after this younger woman, I was the first one to have a child, and then somebody else did. And he wanted to cut it back to 4 weeks.
Oh,
And I was like, what?
I haven't even gotten an hour's sleep by then. Like you.
Well,
like
and
even
my
8
first
weeks,
my
you're still
first
in
child was
survival.
borderline colicky. So like even I'm jealous of some of your moments because I was like driving drunk for years because I was so tired in a way that is difficult to explain to people when you are not sleeping.
I would sleep on the couch with my son elevated. They tell you not to do it, and I was like, I don't
Whatever
give a
for
shit. You're not
survival.
here holding my hand with this child not sleeping. He is elevated. I feel like if we do have a second one, it'll be easier because I'll be like, I don't need anyone's opinion. I know what works for me.
Yes.
I'm the captain here now.
which by the way, what Stephanie just said, best advice for all moms. Just listen to yourself and forget all the rules.
Yeah, that's why if I'm lucky enough to have a second one, I'm looking forward to it for that. But I'm also like, oh shit, how am I going to do newborn and toddler at the same time? I need 4 of me. I'm going to end. I've just really enjoyed our chat so much. I could chat for 10 hours. And you are absolutely, when I say this, welcome back anytime if there's anything else you ever want to discuss.
Game on, just to talk.
Yeah. Well, this podcast is all about filling up your cup, and it certainly sounds like you're really good at doing that on a regular basis. But what's something you'll be doing in the next week to fill up your cup?
Oh my gosh, I have the most delicious thing this week because we're in December time frame at this moment, but I'm going with a friend to Kripalu in New York, which is a lovely meditation center where I'm going to a sacred poetry writing workshop that is like the two of us, and we're sharing a room, and I can't wait to like just be in the beautiful, sacred, quiet spaces as we are, practicing visioning into the new year and all of those things. So I like very juicy.
That is so amazing. That sounds beautiful. Oh my God. I wish I was doing that right now, but you want to hear what I'm doing
Yes,
this
let's
very
hear.
night? Lady Gaga concert. So that is not filling up my cup. That's filling up my bathtub.
I was going to say, you're good for a long time to come after that.
I have not even had a date night with my husband. I don't know how my son's going to go at my parents' house. This will be tough, but because it'll be late. I mean, I go to bed also at like 8:30 with my son now and read.
Yeah.
I'm like,
of course.
The concert will be kicking off then. So I hope I can stay awake. I might need a baraka, but no, I'm so
I
excited.
think
She's one of my
based on
favorite
just
artists.
the visuals, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
It'll keep you awake.
Hey, listen, she had 3 concerts here and hasn't been for 11 years. And I would never miss a Gaga Sydney show. And as I said, I used to be a singer, and like her music, I would sing a lot. She's one of my favorite. And her real name is Stephanie. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
I respect her. Like, again, you mentioned a lot of them too, Joni Mitchell, Stevie Nicks, all that kind of things, but these authentic people. Like everybody's different, but they're all authentic to their style and who
So
they are.
authentic.
And that's the thing to me that energetically resonates so much that you can feel that is difficult to measure.
Yes, and I feel like Gaga's one of those artists where, my brother used to listen to Tool and heavy metal, but he respects her. She's one of those artists that no matter what music you listen to, you can't help but respect what she's created and who she is. She's a true artist.
My version of that was, I can't remember if it was last summer, but I went to see Pink, who was at Soldier Field here in Chicago. And just like, again, somebody who's like, my own rules, thank you so much, whatever they're going to be. And to see her on stage with her daughter singing together, I'm like, okay,
I love her
waterworks here.
relationship with her.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
we'll have an amazing time. May your cup be overflowing.
Thank you so much. And same with you, the retreat. That sounds so beautiful. I wish I was doing something like that as well. It has been an absolute pleasure. This chat has been beautiful. Your book really added so much to my life. So I appreciate your time, just adding not to myself, but to the community as well. So thank you.
And
so
I'm
much.
plugging again to, Stephanie mentioned a resource to download that sounded really good that I'll go look for about connecting
I'll
to yourself.
Put it in my show notes too. Oh, and I'll link all your links in our show notes too, so everyone can find you at your website and wherever else, and your book, I'll link that as well. So thank you again for sharing with the community, and everybody, please do something in the next week to fill up your cup.